Hey everyone, welcome back to BedTyme number 55. Michael, how are you?
Good, doing really well, thanks. Good to be with you.
Perfect. So before we get started, I copied two questions here that I thought we could work on today. Let's do a little review here. We have now three students in our coach program. Of which I think two have actually graduated. That's cool. And we have one client in our self-coaching program. So really cool.
Yeah, that's good. That's very good.
And I want to share that one of our graduates is working on like a Facebook page and starting to like try to get clients. And
nice.
I really thought about when we talked about starting this sleep coach school, like we had this vision of like teaching somebody and then they would not teach others. And I think it's so cool to know that somebody is doing that now. It's happening.
Right. That's awesome. That's so great. It's such a need. There's such a need for people to share this information.
And I think I literally just before we went on here, I was thinking how when you have trouble sleeping, often you have a client that's like doing better, but it's still like, but I'm not there yet. Like I still have all these problems, and then you kind of redirect and say like, but check this out. You've already made a lot of progress. And I thought about like, for you and me, it feels like, okay, we just have a few students and we have to work. But guess what? We come a long way.
We have come a long way. Yes, it has been a journey for sure.
Oh man, so much fun. And there was one. Oh yeah. This is another announcement here. My good friend Rahul. I don't know if you know him from Twitter, but he's working with Andreas, who I think who's a CBTi therapist. On an app very similar to my app BedTyme, which is like CBTi based. It has a curriculum and coach, etc. And they're looking to hire their first coach. So anyone out there that thinks like maybe you're on the tail end of like maybe you've been getting really better. You're like what? I think I want to help other people sleep better. Let me know. Send an email to questions@thesleepcoachschool.com and I can hook you up with Rahul. And if it's a good fit, then we can certify you and you can work as a sleep coach.
Yeah, fantastic.
I already I think one other person has expressed interest, but I think that the whole thing is so cool that somebody's actually hiring a sleep coach. Is so amazing.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a real big trend.
Right?
I don't see how it can't be.
So everybody needs it. So with that said, let's jump in here and let me share your screen. So firstly, where we go? Here we go. Here, share screen, and I want to share this Chrome tab here. Questions. So this came in a few days ago from Peter. I'll just go ahead and read it, and then we'll go ahead and talk about this. Hi, Dr. Harrison. First of all, I'd like to thank you for all your insomnia podcasts. Fantastic information. As a long-time sufferer from insomnia, it's been tremendously helpful. Super glad to hear that, and I want to thank you for providing this this question. In fact, let me take a quick before I forget this. I really wanted to say something here, which was this: that somebody left a comment. I wish I remember the name now, but somebody left a comment yesterday that basically just said like, "Oh my gosh, the comment section is pure gold." And when I read that, I was so happy because I feel the same way. Like the comment section is pure gold. It's like so helpful when people are sharing their experiences, insights, and things like that. So I just want to take an opportunity to say thank you, everyone, for sending questions, for commenting. That is like so valuable. It is pure gold, right?
That's great. That's awesome. That's great.
Zoltan is in the house. Zoltan.
Hey, there he is.
Okay, very cool. So let's go back to this email. Okay, I have a few questions I would love your insight on. I've been working through a self-directed CBTi regimen for 9 weeks now. I've been quite consistent with my sleep restriction, 5.5 hours sleep window, and stimulus control. While I saw significant improvements in the first 2 weeks, my sleep during the past 7 weeks has been quite poor. I seem to have developed a pattern where I have 1 night of poor sleep, followed by 1 night of good sleep, followed by a poor sleep, and so on. The main problem seems to be that I've conditioned arousal while I'm extremely sleepy from supper to bedtime. As soon as I lie down, my mind becomes aware and aroused, and I'm pulled back awake. I can often get to sleep within an hour or two using stimulus control, but then my sleep is obviously shortened to around 4 hours. I feel like I have done a good job accepting my insomnia, reducing sleep control efforts, and I can intellectually accept that insomnia doesn't cause health impacts, nor does it have to negatively affect my day. That being said, I do not feel great the day after poor sleep. So my questions: number one, have you come across people who have taken 9+ weeks to see long-term results from CBTi? Or is this so unusual that you would suspect something is wrong here? Number two, what advice would you have for someone in this situation? Keep up the CBTi, or maybe give it a break for a couple weeks, shorten the sleep window, something else. Thank you, and thanks again for being there for us anytime, Peter. And very good questions, like very clear, concise questions here. So the first one, have you come across people who have taken 9+ weeks to see long-term results, or is it so unusual that you suspect something is wrong here? What do you think of that one, Mike?
Well, yeah, I have seen people take 9 weeks or even longer sometimes, kind of sorting out what they need to do. And everybody's different. So, you know, you just have to find what works best for you. I would probably suggest mixing, you know, not mixing up, but adjusting the sleep window a little bit if it's gone on for a long time, for a number of weeks. And I think he said he got some success in the beginning and then it's not so successful. I think I would maybe explore, like, maybe the initial short sleep window was really effective, and then maybe now it's starting to generate a bit of anxiety because it's so short. I mean, he might be a short sleeper. He might need, you know, it could be a 5-hour sleeper, you know, 5.5 hours. There are some people out there that, you know, there's as many that sleep 8 hours as there are 5 hours, right? Isn't that what the graphs show, basically?
Yeah, that's true.
You know, so maybe he got that sleep drive strong in the beginning, a couple weeks, things fell into place, but then he's maybe a little sleep deprived, and maybe that is leading to some anxiety. Like, he feels like, okay, when I get up in the morning, I don't feel as great as I should, and all that. And so that can create anxiety, which can then make insomnia worse, right? So, you know, start thinking more about sleep and, you know, maybe I should try this, maybe I shouldn't try that. So I mean, that's kind of my take on it. And maybe exploring a little bit longer sleep window for a little while to see if you can kind of decompress everything a little bit might not be a bad thing to try. I mean, it would be like a self-experiment in a sense, but it would be kind of along the right, like a logical path, right? You know, I'm not into people experimenting with, you know, herbs and all that kind of stuff, but experimenting on like a sleep window to see what makes you the least anxious and maybe what fits your life a little better, that's perfectly fine in kind of a systematic way. So you're not just changing it every other night you're changing it or something like that. But maybe a couple of weeks just to try it out, maybe a little longer sleep window. That's my take.
Yeah, you know, I want to add to that first of all, I think I'm not surprised at all when someone says, you know, I've been doing this for 9 weeks and I'm not seeing any results at this point. I don't think there's any strange about that. You know, you're doing this in a self-directed way, which a lot of people can do really, really well with that. I see no problem with that. In fact, this whole channel is about that, you know, helping people get sleep, you know, in a more or less self-directed way with some input from these videos and myself, etc. But that said, you know, sometimes without guidance, it is harder. So, you know, that's something to keep in mind as well. You've done great so far, but now you maybe need a little input. Now, I thought the same thing as you, Michael, and you know, I've been thinking about this a lot lately, that those short sleep windows, I think can cause a lot of anxiety because, you know, a lot of people are waiting till like, okay, it's 11:20, it's not 11:30, it's 11:25. Oh, now I can go to bed, but oh no, then I wake up. You know, that pressure to sleep within that short sleep window, I think definitely can be an issue. I think it's much better to have a longer sleep window that you can, that becomes like almost like not even a thing. It's like, okay, if I get up at 6 in the morning and I go to bed around not before 11 or something like that, it is kind of like a sleep window, but it kind of isn't either because a lot of people do it. So choosing something that's longer and just more sustainable can allow you to take attention away from the whole sleep window thing. I think is much, much better. And speaking of that, we saw here early in the email how, you know, this classic thing, like I feel really sleepy in the evening, but then when I go to bed, I feel really alert. I think having that longer sleep window again could allow you to have, like, again, less pressure, so you can, you know, use that sleep drive you have in the evening to your advantage and actually fall asleep sooner and sleep better. So I think that is a big one.
Yeah.
So cool. We can move on to the second one here, which was what advice did you give for someone in the situation? Keep up the CBTi, maybe give it a break for a couple of weeks, shorten sleep window. We kind of already talked about that, but I have one thought. I can just start with this one. Maybe give it a break for a couple of weeks. I think, you know, you may have heard me talk about this before, Mike, or not, but I talk sometimes about this thing I call like the sleep detox.
Yeah,
you know,
for sure.
which is not a bad idea at all. I think you saw improvement in the beginning, and now not so much. Then sometimes it is really great to say like, okay, for the next 2 weeks, I would still say I'm still gonna get up at about the same time and maybe spend like 7 hours from bed or something like that. But other than that, forget about this whole thing. Like, I'm gonna take a break from my CBTi program and just like do other things that I enjoy. That could be really helpful.
Yeah. And I think also, and you know me, this is one of my huge things, is just get the time out of the night. You know, the timeless night is the best night. So make sure you're not checking that clock. You're not tracking it down, you know, counting down until your window and all this stuff. It doesn't help. And if that is happening and peaks at the clock at night, and if just take that out of the equation, I think is a good thing to try for a couple of weeks. Just get that out of the way and then just see what else is going on.
Sounds really good. And I remembered as we were talking here, something else I wanted to comment on. Let's go back into this email actually. And he says here, Peter says here, I seem to have developed a pattern where I'm going to do it correctly. I seem to have developed a pattern where I have one night of poor sleep, followed by one night of good sleep, one night of poor sleep, and so on. What are you know, when that happens, I'm sure you heard that one before, Michael. What do you think? What are your thoughts when you hear that?
So, kind of good sleep going back and forth, kind of like
these patterns. I mean, Peter had this like kind of very straightforward pattern. One night sleeps more, one night less. One night more, not less. But I'm sure, as you know, there are other patterns too. But thoughts on that one?
Well, yeah, it's common. You know, you hear that a lot, and I think people maybe try to make up for sleep. You know, they have a good night, and then they start to think, oh, what did I do to produce this good night? And then they start thinking, and that's really where it all starts to fall apart. You start to analyze things. Oh yeah, well, I did this, so I should really make sure I do that again. And then they do these things, and then they have some trouble sleeping, and then they think, oh, well, that wasn't it. So, you know, and they have a really poor night, and they get their natural sleep drive builds again for the following night. And then regardless of what they do, their natural sleep drive is stronger. They sleep better. So it's like that. It's like a strong sleep drive night, and then a hyper analyzing day leads to anxiety and sleep efforts at night, which leads to less sleep and then a stronger sleep drive. So I think, does that make any sense? That's kind of what I see.
Yeah, I'm going to say the same thing in a different way, but it's kind of the same thing. I think there's like two reasons why these patterns happen. One is the simple sleep physiology thing, which is like, okay, you sleep a little one night, you're more sleepy the following night, you sleep more that night, and then you're not as sleepy. That is one reason. And another one is the thinking, which could be exactly like you said, like, you know, that you expect. Like, oh, I slept great last night, so maybe I will tonight too. I think I will. And then the expectation sets you up. And then you're like, I didn't sleep last night. I probably won't sleep at all night. And then you're not, you know. So, but the big point here is that no matter how you think of it, if you're thinking like trying to figure it out or it's expectations, the thinking about it always kind of sets you up.
Yes, it does. It really does.
So shift attention is the one. There's
Okay,
cool. Let's go back here because we haven't spent that much time here. And stimulus control, we have pattern, conditioned arousal, extremely sleepy. I can often get to sleep within an hour or two using stimulus control. Interesting. Let's spend just one more. Before we leave this email, leave Peter. When I hear this, let's see here. Peter says, I can often get to sleep within an hour or so or two of using stimulus control. That kind of pops up on my radar. That when I read that, I'm thinking, this is someone who, when they can't sleep, they get out of bed, and then they start feeling sleepy and get back into bed, and then get out of bed and kind of yo-yo out and then finally fall asleep. Versus, because it's worded here like I can get to sleep within an hour of using stimulus control, which again implies that whoever is writing this message is like using stimulus control to make themselves sleep. Do you get the same vibe?
Yeah, I think I do. And I would also, if I was, is it Peter? Is that the?
Yeah, Peter.
I would say, what's your definition of stimulus control? What are you talking about? Because I've sensed there's a lot of people when they hear stimulus control, they think it's like light levels. They think it's like blue light. That's like, because it kind of that, and maybe it's not. Maybe he's not thinking this way. But I would like to ask, like, do you think it's like stimulus, like light's a stimulus, or like certain foods are a stimulus, or anything else is a stimulus? Stimulus control is really kind of that association of bed and sleep. That's really the classic CBTi definition for stimulus control, is associate the bed with sleep, not with anxiety, alertness, wakefulness, all of that. So I would make sure I would clarify that first. Like, what are we really talking about here specifically? Because when you say using stimulus control, I fall asleep in an hour, it doesn't make a ton of sense in the classical context of stimulus control with CBTi. So that's the thing that came to my mind when I heard you read that.
Yeah. I think very that good point. Maybe maybe Peter's thinking like I got to get out of bed and reduce my stimulus, which is there's some problems with that. But I think the one thing that comes to mind is like, again, the verbiage is like I'm using it to make me fall asleep. Sleep is a passive process. You can't do anything to make yourself sleep. We say that all the time. But okay, more practically, so what should you do, right? I think if you are frustrated in bed and just thinking about something pleasant doesn't work, you kind of keep being frustrated in your bed, then I think yes, you should leave the bed. And then, as I will say, but then do something that's enjoyable, that you like doing, and something like that. Because then it's not like I'm waiting for the stimulus control to make me sleep. It's like, oh, I'm actually having a pretty good time, and then you're not counting time, and it's just relaxing. I think think about that one, Peter. Think about that one.
Yeah. Take the focus off of sleep. That's the key. Yep.
Oh, there was a whole bunch of live comments dropped in at one here. Let's go over this. I love this live comments, everyone. I so appreciate it. It's so fun. Zoltan says, I heard in a document that some people are working on a cure for FFI, but how is it possible if it's so rare? Oh my God. Yeah. How is that possible? I'd say this one. The first thing that comes to my mind is like, FFI is a neurodegenerative condition. It's kind of like Alzheimer's disease, Parkinson's disease, like Creutzfeldt-Jacobs. Alzheimer's has been there for like decades and decades, and sadly, we have not come across a cure. We have not found a cure for that. So yes, how would someone even start looking for a cure for FFI? I don't think so. Yeah,
and honestly, it is so rare, from what I understand in my readings, so rare to even like be thinking about that is it's not worth it, really, in a sense. I mean, I'm not trying to dismiss that there might be a teeny tiny possibility that somebody had. I mean, I've been around sleep labs for over 30 years. I think we've had one patient in over 30 years in the 4 or so sleep labs I've ever been associated with. One was a research lab that maybe had signs of FFI, but and I remember asking the doctor, and the doctor's like, I mean, maybe, and I don't even remember what happened with that patient, but that's just anecdotal. That's just me, but it seems so rare, and given the prevalence of chronic insomnia, it's not even close. I mean, it is like you're talking about one of the rarest conditions with sleep.
Yeah, exactly.
One of the most common conditions with sleep.
And I think, Zoltan, I think, your question was like, how would you do that? I don't think it's possible, but, my biggest insight when it comes to this has been that it is actually my biggest insight for anyone out there concerned about this. It is not insomnia. It is not insomnia.
Right.
Insomnia is the subjective thing. Like I struggle with sleep. I can't sleep. I'm worried about my sleep. When you read about FFI, you realize this is like
it's neurological.
It's neurological. It's kind of like you have a 2-month-old they have very fragmented sleep, because their brain is just not mature yet. Same thing with somebody with like very late stage Parkinson's, Alzheimer's. You can't really tell wakefulness from sleep because the brain, it has nothing to do with insomnia.
Right.
Okay. Lyda says, you got this. Thank you. All right. And what would they do as a treatment? I have no clue. I'll just say that. No idea, Zoltan. I have no idea. Okay, Michael has a couple questions. Let's go with this. Hey, Daniel, another question. Is there a reason why hyperarousal happens so regularly? I'll wake up after 4 hours, almost like clockwork. It doesn't faze me anymore, but it still happens every night. I know what you're going to say, Michael. You're like, why do you know it's 4 hours?
How do you know it's 4 hours? How do you know it's 4 hours? I know. I'm the anti-Rolex guy here. Like, no time.
But yeah, that's like my first thinking here is, the first thing I want to say is that this is not uncommon at all. And I think you know that, Michael, but a lot of people describe this how like, I always wake up 3 hours after lunch, or always 5 hours after lunch. And my thinking is that, waking up is normal. It's a normal part of sleep. We always wake up all the time, but it's kind of like when your brain realizes I'm awake and it emotionally reacts to that, that's when you get into trouble. That's when you're like, oh my gosh, I'm awake, and then kind of hyperarousal. So I can't say that it does happen that regularly, or it's just like our perception is like that. But again, the waking up is not the problem. And oh yeah, I want to add this. Why does it happen so regularly? Maybe I mean, a lot of people describe this, so I think that it's some truth to it. But I want to say this, that your circadian rhythm can develop patterns. It's just like this one, for example. Why is it so many of us wake up 5 minutes before our alarm? We just kind of entrained to do that. Like our circadian rhythm can develop these patterns. So I think that can happen too. Like our circadian rhythm is just like gets into a pattern of waking up after 4 hours, or reacting to it after 4 hours. So I don't think there's anything strange there. And again, as you work on your insomnia, as your hyperarousal overall comes down, this will happen less too. Thoughts, Michael?
Yeah, and I think you made a really good point talking about the emotional reaction to waking up at night. You have to understand that everyone wakes up multiple times every night. That's normal, completely normal. As people age, they get other health conditions. They're on medications for this or that. Some other things can start to impact your sleep and maybe produce a few more awakenings during the night. But if you have repeatedly tried to force yourself back to sleep for long stretches of time, like night after night, like when you wake up, you become aware you wake up, and then you have the experience of trying to get back to sleep for a long stretch of time, and that happens night after night after night, your brain is going to tune into that, and it's going to say, oh, here we are, we're awake. Start thinking, let's work on getting back to sleep and all that. So that kind of thought pattern can come in with repeated extended attempts to get back to sleep. So the key is to get out of that environment, out of that situation, whether it's sitting up in bed and reading, or getting out of bed, going to have a snack, and then like doing something you enjoy, like Daniel was saying, something you enjoy, but just you're not trying to sleep. Trying to sleep is at the core of so much chronic insomnia. You have to not try. Never, ever try.
Yeah, I know. And I would add to that, something I've been saying for a long time is like, you have to look forward to going to bed. Like you have to look forward to bedtime, like, the thing you do 1 hour before bed. But lately I'm adding to that. And this one is the one that sounds like a little crazy. It's like, you have to look forward to waking up. If you have something planned that you enjoy and you look forward to waking up, you turn the whole thing around. You actually want to wake up, and then you don't,
Right. A lot, so much. It's like attitude and expectation are just huge. More they override like physiology. Your attitude and your expectations about your sleep are just so important.
Let's see. This was another one but maybe it's just a commentary on the first one. It's almost 4 hours on the dot. Even though it doesn't bother me, still happens. Yeah, I think we talked about that. And then Michael said, also after the initial wake up, I wake up every hour afterward. It's my mind telling me it don't need much more than 4 hours of sleep. I'll let you go first on this one, Mike. So he has this initial awakening, maybe 4 hours, and then after that, sleep becomes more fragmented. What do you think about that one?
Well, okay, being an old sleep tech guy, the red flag goes up for maybe a little sleep apnea, and associated with REM sleep. So REM is this phase you go in and out of at night, and it's like every hour and a half or so. So when people say like the last part of their night is kind of like that periodic awakening, I just have these little red flags. Ask your doctor about sleep apnea. Get screened for it. Just make sure that's not playing into this, because people can have sleep apnea and struggle with insomnia at the same time. So if your insomnia is kind of quote unquote caused in part by some sleep apnea, you got to get that treated. You got to get that out of the equation. So that's just my sleep tech red flag going up. I don't, Mikael, I don't know you, so I don't know what your situation is, but that's something to just make sure you just address it if it's an issue. So, and I assume also that sleep hygiene is not a problem. Like, you're taking care of yourself. You're eating well. You're just generally living a healthy life, specifically not using alcohol for sleep, because alcohol does stimulate your brain later at night. So I don't know you, but if that is an issue, then that's something you should address and kind of get these out of the way. So that's not really an insomnia answer, but it kind of, I've been around a long time. I've seen this, and you got to get those out of the equation or you're going to struggle.
And good points. And that's what's so helpful. We do this together because, that's the direction. My mind was going in this direction of like,
yeah, tell me where your mind is going.
My mind was going more in the direction of like basic, like sleep physiology. Again, maybe, you were pretty relatively sleepy when you went to bed, you slept for 4 hours, then you woke up, and now you paid. It's kind of like you said, like, I don't need more than 4 hours. It's you may not, but most people sleep a little bit more, so you probably do. But my point here is that during that 4 hours chunk when you slept a lot, you paid off a lot of like the sleep debt that your body needed, and then the rest of the night may become a little bit more fragmented because you have less sleep drive, you're less needing to sleep, and you are a little bit hyper aroused after that initial arousal. So that could also definitely explain it. No surprise there.
Yeah. One other thing I just want to throw in is also make sure like there's no daytime napping playing into this. If someone takes an hour-long nap every day, well, within the same 24 hours, that adds to your sleep time. So if you're doing 4 hours at night and then an hour during the day, that's 5, and that might be closer to what you actually really only need.
Yeah.
Again, I don't know you, so maybe that's not a thing at all, but just in case, I want to throw that in there.
Zoltan says, is it normal for people to sleep 5 hours or less? I think that, and again, there's a lot of big studies on this, like objective data on sleep duration, and very consistently actually. And I reviewed this lately, and I'm always so surprised that it is so super consistent. It's like all these studies, like cardia study, the sleep heart health study, and all those show that when you objectively check how much people sleep, it is very close to 6 hours, 6 hours, 50 minutes, 6 hours and 5, like around 6 hours. And if you say that's average, then the kind of like normal distribution is something like, 5 to 6.8, like somewhere in that range is like normal distribution of how much people sleep. So sleeping 5 hours, I think is probably not that unusual. Sleeping less than that would be unusual. But again, if you're feeling great, that's all that matters.
Yeah, and the question is it normal? So that's a different question of, is it good or bad, right? That's a different question. So, normal, it's not that abnormal. It's not that unusual. So whether that's what you need, you have to be the one to kind of figure that out. I want to qualify with, most people are pretty inaccurate at estimating their sleep, and those things you wear on your wrist or your CPAP machine tracking your sleep and all, these are all surrogate measures. They're not particularly accurate. There's a lot of night to night variability and all kinds of things. So to summarize, I don't think it's worth trying to estimate how much sleep you're actually getting. I don't think it helps. I haven't tracked it in 30 years for myself, and I feel like it's helped my sleep in the long run not to track how much sleep I get. But I know it can be helpful for some people to track their sleep. But I I'd like to suggest to some people they might not, or they might take a sleep tracking detox, as you call it, like it's a sleep tracking detox. Like, leave your Fitbit on the counter for a couple weeks and just see. Another thing, I don't mean to go on one real quick for tracking your sleep. If for people who do like to track their sleep, I suggest they check their sleep time the next evening, or later in the day. Don't wake up and immediately check your sleep, whether it's your CPAP machine or the thing on your wrist, because you don't want it to influence your day. You don't want it to subjectively make you feel more tired or depressed or whatever. No, you live independently of some number. So live your day. At the end of the day when you're having dinner, glance, see what you did last night. You'll probably just shrug, be like, you might even say, wow, I had a pretty active day and I got less sleep last night than I did for the whole week.
Exactly.
And it's less like you'll start to learn, like maybe it's, I don't know. Hopefully you saved the receipt for any sleep tracker that you bought. People tell me.
Why not? Exactly. Wake up, maybe write down on a paper, like, how do I feel right now? And how was my day? And then in the evening you check it. And tons of people will be surprised by like, oh my gosh, I thought it wasn't.
Yeah, people ask, what do you think the latest version of whatever sleep tracker? And all I say is, did you save the receipt? That's all I want to know. That's all I really need to ask.
I love it. Oh my gosh. And I think this is for both of us. Zoltan has suggested that we smoke cigars and wear glasses. Oh, that's good. Okay. Next one. I purposely picked this one. It just came in very recently because this is such like, I was excited about this one, and you'll see why in a second. Let me just share my screen here. Share this. Oh, is it still there? I'm confused. Oh, no, it wasn't. Anyway, a little glitch there. Let's go back. Let's go to our next. This is a comment on a recent episode. It came in just a few hours ago. So the comment goes like this. I recently had a lot of trouble sleeping. I'm usually a guy who falls asleep with zero effort and could not even stay up late if I tried. I attempted to move my waking time from around 7-ish to 6-ish, so I went to bed an hour earlier. Now, after 2 weeks, I have had terrible sleep. I've had one good sleep and the rest 4 hours, with 2 of the days with no sleep. It's driving me nuts, and I don't know what to do. And just for context, why I was kind of like, when I get these ones, I always get excited because it's, he says, I've always been, and I recently started having this issue, but, I'll let, since we're not together that often, Mike, I'll let you go first on this one. What do you think is happening, and what should we think about here?
Well, of course, we're curious what the precipitating event may have been, like what may have been associated with the start of this, if anything. I'm a little curious why, I forget the name, he or she.
Dench.
Okay, why Dench would move his or her morning time up an hour. Not totally sure what the rationale was with that. I think, I guess that would be my question. I would have a couple of questions for that person first before I would offer any kind of. I can't really come up with a lot of insight.
Yeah, sure.
So I'm curious what you have to say.
Yeah. I choose these questions for a specific kind of reason that they get me excited. And now I'm like,
you put me on the spot.
Why did you do that?
Yeah, right.
Now I want to say this to Dench. And here's the thing. When I get a comment or an email from anyone who says like, I've had trouble sleeping for a week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks, then I get really excited because I'm like, you guess what? You haven't had trouble sleeping for 10 years or 15 years or 5 years. You don't have these entrenched beliefs and these rituals and this like identity as an insomniac. I get excited because like this is a chance to like nip something in the bud, like right away. It doesn't have to become something it's a problem for this person. Yeah. So my and I wrote a pretty long comment there to Dench, but I just want to take the opportunity to talk about it here. Like for anyone out there, if you had trouble sleeping for a week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks, it's like the reason insomnia happens is that you start you start wondering why you can't sleep. You pay attention to your sleep. You try to make changes. You try to get you get all like into it, and like if you can just like this early on, I think it is easy for you to just be like, it was a hiccup. I had a little hiccup, and I'm just going to stop paying attention to it, and I'm going to do whatever I did 3 weeks ago or 4 weeks ago, and you just keep moving forward, and you can do really well. Which, if somebody's had insomnia for 5 years, I can't just be like, oh, just do whatever you did 6 years ago, and you'll be fine. That doesn't work,
Right?
Because you have a lot of thought work to do. But if it's like somebody, I've had trouble for 2 weeks, it's like, just do whatever you did 3 weeks ago. Forget about this whole thing.
Right. Exactly right. It's optimism, right? It's short-term insomnia like that. It's optimism. It's like you should feel real good about the possibilities that your sleep can return to what it was, because it wasn't that long ago when you were sleeping fine.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So Dench, I'll say this. I say this in clinic a lot. I'll say this jokingly here. So Dench, hope not to hear from you.
Yeah. Hope not to hear from you.
Yeah. Hope you'll do really well there. So Mikael here. One other question. My sleep is super dream heavy now. The entire night feels filled with dreams. Is this telling me something about my sleep? Does this mean I don't get deep sleep? I think it's telling you something for sure. What do you think it's telling us?
Well, that they're probably waking up a lot in REM, right? So everyone goes through REM every night for the most part. Certain medications can really suppress REM, but for the most part, everyone goes through REM, and you go to REM, you have dreams. Some people remember the dreams, some people don't. It is a whole mixed bag. It's like, don't try to figure it all out. But if you are starting to, or if you're more frequently now remembering dreams and all this kind of stuff, it could mean that you're waking up in REM more. Another red flag for maybe a sleep apnea thing. Again, ask your doctor, check it out. But REM is kind of a, and I don't know what you think about this, Daniel, is, in my understanding, REM is considered kind of a lighter stage of sleep. Like your brain waves kind of look like you're awake a little bit. They're not that much different. I've seen that, and your eyes are moving and you're kind of paralyzed and all kinds of weird stuff happening, but your brain waves has a lot of wakefulness kind of look to it. So I've always thought of it as kind of something that it's a state that you can become very conscious very quickly when you wake up. Like you wake up and it's like, maybe you were dreaming right then and there, and it just like you remember it, instead of like sleeping through it and then kind of coming out of REM and not remembering your dream, which is a little more of a normal kind of thing. So you could be just becoming very aware that you're awake very quickly, and then maybe the experience of trying to force yourself back to sleep over time, now the alertness and the awareness that you're awake sticks with you a little bit longer than it does with someone who doesn't really try to get back to sleep, if that makes sense. That's kind of how I
I think
comment on that.
I got a lot from that one, and I want to say what I would say, Mikael, is this one. When I hear this, like I have a lot of dreams, or I have a lot of vivid dreams, or my dreams are intense. To me, my red flag, my spidey senses or whatever is like hyperarousal. I go hyperarousal, and I think for two reasons. So hyperarousal, for anyone that's new to the channel, is like this kind of heightened sense of like emotional state, like a little bit on alert, like we're how do you say, a little bit stressed, anxious, or just a little hyper alert. We're aware of everything's going on. And that can do two things. One, that can make you, like Mikael says, when you wake up, you become aware of waking up, and you react strongly, you become more awake. And secondly, everything is emphasized when you're hyper aroused. Pain feels more. This tingling feels like a real thing. A twitch, like everything's like you're in this hyper alert state. So therefore, your dreams also seem more intense. You wake up more because of the hyperarousal, and then you remember your dreams more because of hyperarousal. So I think it's to me, it's a classic hyperarousal thing. And then does this mean I don't get deep sleep? I would say yes. I think it does. I mean, that's not necessarily like deep sleep as in the technical like delta sleep, that sense, but deep sleep as in like you don't get like consolidated uninterrupted sleep. That's true. And then Coach Mikael says check maybe sleep apnea. Always could talk to your doctor. My thinking is maybe it's part of hyperarousal again. It's all part of the hyperarousal, and once that goes down, everything, you won't have this dream recall so much, or the vivid dreams, etc. Zoltan is back. Why are doctors and teachers say that less sleep is unhealthy? And because oh, I could, this is one of those like triggers for a rant. This calls for a rant.
Yeah. Do you want me to comment on this one? Or you're a doctor, you can comment.
Actually,
why are people
I have
like
a lot
you?
I want to say this. Doctors, I have a lot of empathy for doctors because, generally speaking, doctors get like minimal sleep education. Maybe I think most medical schools now probably have like, they teach you about sleep apnea, probably, maybe a little bit about restless legs and things like that, but nothing about sleep physiology. I don't think anything about like the impact of sleep and health. So doctors really get their information like everybody else from like from the news, from media, etc. So doctors don't really know much more about health, the sleep and health than everybody else does. So they often say like, get your 8 hours. If you don't sleep enough, this is gonna hurt you. And why is it that we're always fed that? Well, guess what? Everybody with any voice in this space, it benefits them for you to think that getting less sleep is unhealthy. And I'm talking about, like, by the way, this book here, why we don't sleep, it's just talking about this. This is exactly what it's talking about. If you think about it, let's say you're in academia, I'm by no means anti-research. Research is super important, otherwise we don't know what they're doing. But if you're in academia and you're studying sleep and its impact on health, and you go out and say, I didn't find anything, sleep has nothing to do with health, how are you going to get funding? How are you going to get published? How are you going to get that professorship? How is anything good ever going to happen? You kind of have to say sleep is very important. It can cause this, right? That's academia. And then we have media. Like, who's going to read your article if you say like sleeping 5 hours is totally fine? No, nobody's interested in hearing that. This doesn't get any attention, eyeballs. Nobody gets scared. There's no point in writing that article. So in media, you have to scare people, right? And then you have like these non-for-profits like the Academy of Sleep Medicine, the NIH, all these big organizations. Same thing there. If the Academy of Sleep Medicine says it's okay if you don't sleep that much, then that's weird. Like, they have to say sleep is super important. Get your sleep. If you don't, and I say sleep is important too. Of course it's important. I want to have everybody sleep amazingly well, but you get more attention if you say that not sleeping enough is dangerous. So little mini rant there.
Right. Yeah. No. Ditto. I don't know what else to say. Yeah, I totally agree. Causing and being associated with are two completely different things. If anything can cause insomnia, anything can trigger a bout of insomnia, or anything. Like, you bump your elbow on the wall, ow, it hurts, didn't sleep very well for it last, a couple nights in a row, poor sleep, and next thing you know, you're like, movies until dawn on your TV, and you're pacing the hallways because you can't sleep, and you're, and then the elbow heals, and then you're just like an insomniac at that point. So, anything can trigger insomnia, but to cause a health condition, there's no evidence. There's no science. There's no experiment, because you'd have to induce insomnia. You'd have to make someone have insomnia. And insomnia, it's often a big part of it is subjective. It's, when you study people with insomnia and normals, and you look at their brain waves, people who are experienced at looking at these types of recordings, they can't usually tell the difference, right? You get like 20 people with insomnia, 20 people without insomnia, normal sleepers, and you study them, and you look at their brain waves, and you don't code them. You don't identify who's who, an insomnia or not insomnia person. Experts can't differentiate them. Show me the 20 people with insomnia in these 40 recordings. They're not better than chance. So it's there's that part of it too. And so there's so much to this answer. I don't want to go on and on, but
I know, but I think actually I have a good way to kind of finishing up this episode over here, which is to say, a lot of times people tell me like, oh, my doctor doesn't want to listen to me, just wants to prescribe medications. They don't take me seriously and stuff like, and then I understand that person totally. And that, because that's true. Like, the medical establishment has never had like had never really embraced insomnia. Right. But on the other hand, I also have empathy towards the doctor who's like, has no clue, and they don't know what to do. Like, I can't sleep. So, they have no clue what to do. So they just have to prescribe a medication because they know nothing else. And guess what? Here's kind of the finale here. That's why we started this site, right? to educate people. You know, if
Yeah.
you're a doctor out there, you want to learn about sleep, take our course. Like, and we hopefully we will change everything by like educating, people who like one of our students who just had insomnia. Now he's a sleep coach, or another student is a physical therapist. Maybe we'll have students that are doctors, that are nurses, that are psychologists, whatnot, and like the word will get out there.
Yeah.
The end.
Everybody sleeps, and so it impacts everything. So be the solution. Be part of the solution.
Perfect. Zoltan, Mikael, everybody who's commented or anything, I want to thank everyone. And thank you, Mikael. And we'll be back next week.
Great questions.
Ciao, ciao.
Yeah, thanks everyone for writing in. That was really fun, and look forward to more. Thanks.
All right.